And I would like to introduce our panelists. Arturo Castro, creator, writer, EP, and star. There he is. And Nick Jasenovec, got his name right, I think. Director. Thank you. Hey guys, what's up?
Hi.
Hey.
You gotta turn it off. Wow. Hi.
Hey.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming on such a wonderful.
How was
Saturday.
it listening to people?
Well, I was
watch it?
completely passed the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's so good to see it on the big screen. This is the first time we've been watching it on like 10 little screens on our phones for years.
Is it possible to watch it without thinking in your head, oh, I should have fixed that, oh, I should have changed it?
Oh no! I have no I have no performance critiques at all. I was just like, wow, can I be less good? Is what I'm thinking back there.
It's a really good question. It's a
I have
really
a few
good
performance.
Well, you noticed, yeah. Well, at first, it was sort of like the format was sort of strange in the first date, and I was like, stop it! And then it got fixed, and I was like, everything's okay.
Everything's okay. Yeah, I can imagine. So I think that one of the things that's interesting about this show is it's a sketch show, but we haven't seen. I feel like Comedy Central hasn't had one in a minute that's been like a pure sketch show. Like I think of Inside Amy Schumer, and it's been a few years since that. I was curious what, why sketch is. I know it's like, it seems like a super fun thing. You get to wear a lot of hats.
Well, we workshopped the name Deep Inside Arturo Castro, but it didn't work out. Why a sketch show? Because I thought that there were so many things to say about, well, the Latin community is so varied, and I thought, in a streamlined way, it's sort of like hard to tell so many different stories within it. Just like wearing wigs a lot, okay? Just like, what do you want from me? No, but I thought that, and that sort of had different iterations. The date part 1, part 2, part 3. At first, it was going to be like ceviche with Arturo. Remember that?
So because he's not a traditional sort of comedian, all sketch shows are woven together by like stand-up or man on the street, and that's just not really.
I don't like doing stand-up. I get really nervous.
and that's the audience's way of getting to know the performer behind all the wigs and everything. So we were like, well, how can they get to know Arturo like in between all these sketches? And so yeah, we talked about like documentary stuff at one point, and
brunch with my friends. That was another one.
There was like
I couldn't find any friends, so we just were stuck there.
Yeah. I think there was like a mock documentary version where like everything just kept going wrong.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. Yeah, it just kind of naturally evolved to this.
And we get a chance to like the narrative portion is a little more sort of grounded than the sort of like the wackiness, so it sort of gives you a palate cleanse, I feel. And my background besides comedy is also in drama, so it's like further along in the season there's some interstitials that are like funny but also like sort of deal with some real stuff, and I was like, oh, that's a really good format to play with. Yeah. And you can hire so many actors when you're doing a sketch show. Like New York City, I saw every act, and that's truly the best part about having your own show, is being able to hire other people to be in it, So many people's first jobs, TV jobs were with us, and that's what Aviolana did for me, So I really wanted to do that.
I really loved the paper towel sketch in particular. I could hear a lot of laughs in the audience. I was curious if you could just tell us a little bit about developing that, including and up to the dance sequence, which I feel like is a crucial portion.
By the way, I thought it was really nice to see that with an audience because it plays funnier than I ever thought it would.
Well, here's the thing. Nick is always the complete pessimist. I am like somewhere in the middle, and Jay Martell, our head writer, is a complete optimist. So everywhere in the room. So please take everything with a grain of salt. It was, as we were shooting, I was like, first of all, we shot all this in winter, and we wrote it in LA, but we shot it in New York. And our writers forgot that there's this thing called weather. So we're shooting these Puerto Rico sketches in the middle of winter, being like, cool guys, it's great, just the t-shirt's fine. There's different iterations. One of them, everything's sort of like he's trying to fix things, but like people keep dying, and like, they keep, and I was like, that's too dark. And I'm a terrible dancer, but like I'm good at following choreography, so I was like, let's get a big, I just love musical dance numbers for no reason,
Yeah, there's a few.
And there's a few in the show. And it was sort of like, this is sort of like the perspective of like, when I was watching that, the actual news conference, I was like, what? And so I was like, well, okay, well, if you think that's really going to fix everything, let's fix everything, And so.
Wasn't the pitch like, oh, I wonder what happened to the guy who caught him, or something. Like someone said that, and then
I was like, he's living his best life, and it's like, let's show you how, you know.
I think that a lot of comedians right now, they struggle a little bit with like how to approach comedy in the Trump era. I feel like you hear that a lot, that there's like a concern that like maybe it's going to become too political for the audience, or like it's just not funny anymore. I think that like that's a great example of like, here's something that like clearly is quite angering on some level, but then you can extrapolate it and stretch it to make it something funny.
That is the only time you ever see him mentioned at all in the whole show. Because the thing is, listen, I believe that comedies are really, it's an empathy building tool, right? But I can't attack the micro. I can't attack a tweet. I can't, like, I'm just going after the macro sort of thing of like, I believe that the human experience at its base level is basically the same, right? Everybody can relate to feeling awkward on a first date or like feeling sort of like confused about something. And I feel like if you watch somebody that doesn't look like you go through things that you can relate to, maybe it'll make you a little more accepting next time you see them, you know? So the show is not really, listen, I could have called the show Whitey McWhite or something. They would still call it the Latino show, you know? And we were just talking today, just having a show and looking like me and being an immigrant is sort of a political thing, I guess, now, you know? Unavoidably so, and there is sort of like a responsibility to go with when you have a platform. But I'd say like 85% of the show is not political in and of itself.
yeah. He does get mentioned one more time.
When?
Hello, Mr. President.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but it could be any president. You know, it could have been anybody.
But no, we did, I guess we did kind of, we didn't want to hit that too much or too often. Like at one point you weren't even sure if you wanted to mention him at all.
I just don't, you know, because it's the policies that I attack, not the person. I like couldn't like because it's too like, you know, and you're right. It gets to be a lot, and I'm just sort of like of the hopeful sense of like, you know, comedy's a really disarming tool. But also I feel like people, like, as soon as you start with something political or whatever, it's like people are like, you know, they don't really get the message. So I was like, let's just attack the macro, the things that upset me. We have a sketch called Cagefree Kids about a new ICE program about like free range, grass-fed, no antibiotics. Yeah, exactly. Ridiculous, you say? Yes, it is.
That's week 2, right?
Yeah, that's week 2. Because, you know, and it's sort of the same thing as this one. It's the things that like make me really angry, but I was like, all right, well, if you support that, then you're saying that children are animals. And then, okay, he's like, children are animals. That's what he wrote. That's fucking weird.
Said answer better.
Yeah, it's weird. And so I was like, let's take it to the ridiculous and see what that feels like.
Yeah, I imagine there's just, there's just a lot to be, that's supremely up that's happening that I imagine you can have that response to. I mean, so another example is The Date, which I think is like, it's such an interesting like 4-part journey into having to live a stereotype or having that put on you that I think brings you into it in a way that is not like, this is good, this is bad, this hurts my feeling. It's just like, it's untenable, like you're not that person. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about putting that one together?
You know, it doesn't make me angry. Like, it doesn't like, you know, most of the things that we write are more like, I feel like it's just like an informational tool, you know, because I find it really funny, you know, when like people like, you know, like make a big effort to like pronounce my name, like Arturo, and I'm like, that's fine, or yeah, whatever you want, you know. People are like, in the second episode we have a thing called Playing Pivot, where I'm at a party and being the only because it happens to me a lot where I'm the only sort of non-white person there, and they're like, you're from Guatemala? You're not gonna believe this. I just came back from Peru, and but it's well intentioned, you know. Like people just want to relate to you with what they find, you know, and like the images that they think of you. So, but it is sort of like, like I don't like spicy food. I'm not very bad at it, you know. So I've never seen a version of like sort of like the softer Latino that I happen to be. So we wrote one.
I want to see if anyone in the audience has questions, because we have a little bit of time for that. But you're going to have to like wave at me a bit because it's bright in here. And then if you have no question, okay, great. Yes, you back there.
Yeah, so it seems like the costumes and makeup are a big part of the show. Was there a lot of thought and effort that went into making sure that was right?
I'm going to repeat it just so that everyone can hear it. The question is about costumes and makeup. It seems like it's a big part of the show. Was there a lot of thought that went into it?
I mean, yeah, we have a killer team for the budget that they have. Kayla Dobson, I also became an expert in like passing out in the makeup chair because we'd do like 2-3 characters per day, you know. So like, you know, that's when you sort of get to rest. But was there a lot of thought? I mean, yeah, we discussed it.
Well, yeah, there's always like a lot of reference points, whether it's like something that is real or exists, or another film or style of, you know, a genre that we're emulating or whatever it may be. But I remember even in the pilot, like when there's this. So this is kind of the pilot, but there's been a couple things moved around. But there's a like sort of Game of Thrones style sketch in the pilot, and we were like, it's really important that they don't feel like costumes, you know? So like I think they actually had to fly all the wardrobe in from LA for that. As an example, like some things like that are just, I guess, not as readily available in New York.
And you'll be surprised like how passionately you wind up feeling about the color of a tunic or whatever. Our costume designer is like, blue again? I'm like, yes, blue again. I don't know why, but it's but yeah, you become so meticulous when you know, Nick is such a master at detail, you know, and you become so obsessed with these sort of details about, like we all do, of like what the character looks like, because the world needs to feel real. If you notice, the sketches are less sort of like YouTubey and more sort of like short films, you know? It's things that you live in, because, you know, he has such a great indie heart, you know, wrote and directed Paper Heart, and just an amazing filmmaker, you know? And so that was the skill that I think really elevates what Nick is doing in the show, you know?
Nick, are you in the writer's room too?
Yeah, I wasn't sure how much I would be, and then I ended up, I was gone for like a few weeks. I was off doing another job, but when I got back,
Priorities, Nick.
I was there every day, but I wasn't sure if I would be, and then I mean I really enjoyed it, and it seemed to help to have another person there, like you know, just for ideas and kind of helping stuff evolve. Because I mean, you know, something will come from like I don't know, one word or one line, and then suddenly everyone goes off in these different directions, and then you end up with paper towels.
Yeah.
All right, are there any other questions out there? You'll have to wave. I can't see you. Okay, cool. I guess just I get to ask you more questions. Oh no, someone's back there. Hello, hi, go for it. What are the knock-on effects? Is that what you said? Yeah. What are the knock-on effects of that Broad City had on its viewers, and what are the knock-on effects you're hoping? I don't know what a knock-on effect is.
I guess like what was the impression on its viewers, or like what?
Oh, that makes me feel better.
All right, cool.
But please explain what you mean. The ripple effects. So what were the ripple effects of it?
I mean, I can't speak for Avi and Alana, but like having been on the show, I'd say like it was a snapshot in time. You know, I'd never seen somebody that was broke living in New York on television, you know, and a show that sort of like didn't make a big deal about interracial relationships or LGBTQ, you know, in friendships, or it was just sort of like what the New York that I knew looked like, you know, and I think a lot of people just sort of felt empowered and identified with that. With the show, I hope that everybody feels like you don't have to be Latin in order to enjoy the show, that everybody can come to the party, but it's also sort of like I didn't grow up seeing people that look like me on TV, and when I did, it's Antonio Banderas was probably killing them, and it's just sort of really empowering. I'll give you an example. I was going to change my name when I first moved to the States because I thought it was too ethnic, right? Arturo Castro, too ethnic, you say? How dare you? But I really did, and
what name were you going to choose?
Joe Desant.
Okay. That's amazing.
It was like Jose DeSantiso, but like Joe Desant or whatever.
Oh, how old were you when you moved?
19.
19, good.
And because I was ashamed of it, I just wanted to work. And to me, seeing a billboard with my name on it now that I didn't change, and I like realized it was my strength, right? Like where I come from is sort of my strength. I love New York. That's where I became an adult. But I can't deny where I came from. That's sort of like what makes me sort of weird and fun or whatever. And so to me, that was super. So I hope what it imposes on viewers is like a sense of like, you know, identity that I don't think was there on television before, you know? And I hope it's sort of an empowering sense too of like, oh my God, yeah, I'm sort of weird like that too, you know? Like in our show, we empower weirdness, and I think I would love for people to take that away from it. Just be strange, guys. You know, just be strange, you know?
Well, and I mean, thankfully things are changing. But like even when we were in the writers' room, I remember there was like an article, and I'm gonna get the number wrong, but there was something like on TV, I think like 60% of Latino roles were like criminals.
Wow.
I can't remember like.
Mind you, I did
drug
Narcos too, so I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is kind of insane that like.
Or service, and it's there's a lot of association with Latinos in service positions or sort of low rungs of thing. And here you just see a dude that's just like trying to like navigate dating life, not super broke, but like not rich at all, and just like and has friends and they don't care. And I feel like in this the character's ethnicity is not just like cross to bear, it's just like what he happens to be, and everybody else like wants him to be that, But yeah, we just wanted to have a slice of life. But yeah, there's a lot of criminal roles out there. And I played most of them for the beginning parts of my career, yeah.
Was there, did you feel any pressure or concern, I suppose? So you're Guatemalan, and you have that funny fuck Costa Rica
some girl yesterday was like, oh, where are you from? Guatemala. She's like, oh my God, I love Guadalajara. I was like,
cool.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's a great place.
Did you feel any concern about, I don't know, Latinx is such a big identity. I mean, there's so many different ways to identify as that. And I know that you're kidding about Costa Rica, but I was sort of curious.
There's a Costa Rica response sketch. 'Cause I believe that's the only way to be able to do it. If you're like throwing shit at somebody and they can't defend themselves, then that's bullying. But if you're like throwing shit back and forth, so the Costa Rica ad is basically like, we heard somebody from Guatemala had some not so nice things to say about us. We would have been upset, but we couldn't find it on the map. Oops, and I was like, that to me is like, all right, cool, But yes, I always
we cast a Costa Rican actor.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
very specific.
We're
We
very
have to get someone
I was
from
so
Costa Rica.
passionate about it because you're right. Because like the thing is, the show is about unity, and it's not about sort of like throwing. Even though we do have a Pitbull sketch that I don't know if he's gonna really like, but but yeah, it was a concern of mine. Of course, like it's a show about unity. The last thing we need is like infighting between us, but. It does go to say something about sort of, it says less about like the countries and more about sort of like the tourists, like, oh my God, I'm so excited, going to Costa Rica, and it's
That's
like,
a great white voice.
Guatemala, yeah, I've been practicing, I've
You'll hear
been
it a lot,
infiltrating you
yeah.
people. But yeah, there was just so many like connotations about Guatemala. It's like, it feels like a place where people live. Yeah, fucking right.
You remember in the writers? I remember how it started in the writers' room. I don't think it's mean, but but like someone pitched like a Costa Rica sketch, and you're like, oh man, like
Yeah, I was like,
everyone
come
goes
on,
to
everyone
Costa
goes to Costa Rica.
Why don't they go to Guatemala?
And everybody's like,
Then we're like, oh wait, maybe that's a sketch.
Yeah. But we were careful about, like, the show is never mean-spirited. It's poignant, but it's never mean-spirited. So if we throw shit at somebody, you're definitely, like, be assured that there will be an episode where they throw shit back, yeah.
All right, let me
To
see.
my all my Costa
Question.
Ricans out there,
All the Costa-
I love you guys.
Shout out Costa Ricans. Okay, you right here. Do you have a favorite character you played or a favorite sketch you directed that sticks out?
I really like Translator,
we have
which I think is the opening of episode 2 now.
Yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous.
We have a sort of a who's on first about the translator for like
In
a
a drug
gun
deal. Yeah,
between
okay.
like an American buyer and like a Latino one, and it's just like it's just so stupid. It's like so
It was
you're,
really fun.
you're the translator. Tú eres el traductor. No, tú eres el traductor. No, you're the and it just like keeps escalating until everyone else. To me, one of my favorite characters is this redhead called Jekka. It's like, hey, bitch, And like she's just like based on a lot of people that we know. But like the thing is, first of all, shaving my legs for the first time was a trip. Man, it's so hard to do.
Welcome.
How do you get the back of the leg? And then you're like, it takes so long. It's like half an hour in there. It burns. Like you cut yourself there, really hurts. So newfound respect for anybody that shaves their legs.
Armpits, chest.
Armpits.
everything.
Well, I didn't have much hair there to begin with, but yes. And then, but the thing is, all like her whole thing is like she's always the bridesmaid, never the bride, and she decides to get plastered and ruin the wedding. And so, as an actor, when we staged the wedding, hipster wedding, and all I had to do was ruin it, and I was like, this is hilarious. is. I'll tell you one thing. I had like started talking to these catering guys that were like arguing loudly, and I was coming from the trailer, and I was like with a coat and dressed as Jack, and I was like, guys, this is not what we do. Blah 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 blah. And my assistant's like, and I was like, what? And I was like looking down. I was like, oh, I'm fully in a dress and as a redhead. And the guys are like hesitating between listening to me and also like, what the, you know? That's a great character.
All right, there was a question over there. Yep, go for it.
It was all
Yep.
Costa Ricans.
Great. I'm just going to repeat
Our
the
writers,
question.
what was our writers' room like, and what was the key references that we had?
Yep. The sketch references. Yeah.
Our head writer was the head writer for Key and Peele, so we had sort of like that like reference point. But we didn't set out to make Key and Peele. You know, we just set out to make our own. Let me just answer the composition real quick. We were lucky enough to have LGBT community represented and 2 Latinx people. With me, it's 3. You know, depends on what day you catch me. You know what I'm saying? And the rest were of a Caucasian, like the rest 3 or 4. Which, to be honest, it was hard sometimes to find the talent that we wanted, of course, to staff it with as many people of color as we could. But in order for the sketches to get to us, they have to have an agent first, you know? And so the lack of work out there means that a lot of people of color aren't getting the agents for them to us to then discover the packets, you know? And we really did.
Sergio was
like
under
a key.
the radar. Yeah. I can't remember what they called that section of
the unsolicited ones? What are they
yeah.
called? Jose, what's the list? Like, unsolicited.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it was an unsolicited packet that we just got, and that's how we found one of our Latino writers. But yeah, it was tricky. But we did have. I feel the room wasn't that big, so it felt like we had diverse voices. You know, about at least half of the room was people of color or women or LGBT community. But yeah, dude, like it's a constant ongoing thing about opportunities for people of color and minorities, you know, in the comedy world particularly.
And he was asking about sketch touchstones too, if there were any other shows.
Oh, that we love, yeah. We love Mr. Show. We love.
Well, yeah, I mean, pretty much everything, you know, like, but I guess in terms of, I don't know if there was really like a sketch reference point so much. I mean, we definitely like, you know, we did like the way Key and Peele sort of, everything felt very cinematic, and I don't know, it wasn't budget. I mean, I'm sure that they didn't have a lot of money, but you would never know that from watching the show. And that was sort of our similar goal, was to just try and elevate everything as much as we could from a production standpoint, and to really like kind of commit to the tone and the world and stuff like that. But I mean, I guess
but tonally, like we weren't really imitated. Like look-wise, we love things that look cinematic. But like tonally, at some point, we just decided we're like, listen, we can't make a Key and Peele, we can't make an Amy Schumer show, we can't. And I realized that the more specific you get about your own experience, the more relatable it tends to be sometimes, even though that's counterintuitive, you know. So we're just like, what is the show? What does the Alternatino look like? And I guess that.
But you know what? I did well, cause like I think too. Well, wait. So there is a show that did the narrative thing similar to us before, but I forgot about it.
I've never heard of it. It doesn't exist.
But there's a British show called Snuffbox. You haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
With Matt Berry and Rich Fulcher, which is really fun. But they have a narrative that is woven through the episodes. But like we thought we had.
But on this continent, we are the first.
Yeah.
In America,
we did think
we
had,
are
like,
the first.
Come up with a totally new format. And then I was like, oh wait, I think someone did do this. But theirs is very different. Very, very different. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think we really like looked to sketch for inspiration all that much.
I just read John Leguizamo's memoir, and I was like, this. Yeah.
Wait, really?
I watched Stand Up and Deliver, and I was like, this. No. No, we just try to set out our own, yeah.
All right. I think we have time for one more
I think
question.
too, like you and I don't even really come from sketch. So I think that gives a new sort of angle.
I'm like really afraid I'm missing someone's hand, but I don't think I see anything more. Oh, yep, there you are. Hi, and you have the last question of the night. What is it?
What advice would you give to other Latinos that are trying to get into?
What advice would you give to other Latinos trying to get into media?
You know, I have sort of like 3 sort of beliefs. You can find a copy of my book underneath your seats.
Is this Oprah?
and you get a book, and you get a book, and you get a book. We all get a book. Hey, listen. When I graduated school, like it was really hard to shoot and get equipment. It was really expensive, but it isn't now. And sort of like if the stories that you feel represent you are not out there, you have to write them and shoot them. Like get a group together and shoot and put it on YouTube. Make mistakes. Like really start creating your own content as soon as you can, because that is like. There's so much content out there. There's so much, and people are really hungry for original stories. And I realized that like there's so many people trying to do what we do. The only way you're going to stand out is by being completely yourself. At least when you're writing, you know. So I would recommend that. Number 2 is like there is no plan B, right? Like there is no plan B. If this is what you want to do, that's it. Like cut the safety net. This is it. Like if you have a calling, if you have a message to share, this is what you do. Number 3, don't like make it about something other than yourself, you know? Because like I think otherwise you'll go insane. Even if you see billboards of you, you're like, oh my God. You make it about a platform, make it about a purpose, right? What is it that you're trying to say? Like who are you trying to help? And then you can place it on then when this crippling self-doubt that attacks all actors happens, you know? But yeah, I really hope we get to work together and I get to see your show one day at the ATX. I really do. Yeah.
What was it like for you starting out in this industry?
My first role was on The Good Wife, and it was called, my character was called Dishwasher Juan. I swear to God. And I was like, how many fucking Juans were there in that episode? Like Dr. Juan, Firefighter Juan, like they call me one or the other. It was, but you know, I will also say that it was never beneath me, you know, telling immigrant stories. It was never beneath me. What was is I wanted to see things that were more specific, right? But yeah, it was really tough. You know, I was doing theater a lot because theater is a little more like theater was woke even before like TV like got wind of it. And then Broad City was my first pilot audition.
Wow.
So I got very lucky, and then through that I produced my first web series, and I was like, oh, I really like producing. And then Alternatino came, and then Ang Lee, a film that nobody watched, but I shot with Ang Lee, so everybody said, oh, he could do drama. So then Narcos and everything else. But yeah, it was like 5 years or 6 years of eating ramen noodles and like looking out my basement window being like, how am I gonna do this? But I never felt sorry for myself, and I always knew I could do it. Like I was like looking at other people, and I was like, if they can, like I know that all I need is to get into the right rooms. And I've always been sort of like blessed or cursed with this like blind optimism, and I was like, yeah. After 6 hours of waiting in line at an open call in the cold, 5 minutes. Oh, that's all I need, man. And they're gonna and I remember there were these wonderful moments of like, you know, they've seen 100 people and they're like just like next, and they're looking at the headshot, and then you start doing your thing, and they're like, I was like, gotcha, I got you. $100 a week for off Broadway show. I gotcha. Well, you build it, you know. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you guys
and for
so
the
much.
wonderful questions. Thank you to our talent.
I love Costa Rica. I love Costa Rica.